Law Talk with Nick Maruchak. Thanks to MKI Legal, your trusted employment and family lawyers.
So, very good morning to Nick Maruchak at 28 and a half minutes to 11 o'clock from MKI Legal. G'day, Nick. How are you?
Good morning, Bowie. I'm great.
That's the ticket. Nick, I think I know the answer to this. Have you ever run out of petrol?
Once. I ran out. Yes, I was 17 years old.
Wow.
And I was driving in the tunnel and I ran out of petrol in the tunnel, right? And thank goodness they sent a tow truck because I got out of the car and I tried to find a booth and then a big voice comes out on the speaker, "Get back in your car." So I get back in the car and then, they tow you out just to the entrance, and then a mate was driving by and he saw me and just picked me up. So it was just dumb luck.
And you reckon you were a teenager?
Yeah, 17, 18, something like that.
You've done well not running out again.
Yeah.
So then that would have been in the days when it was only 2 lanes, so you would have been an absolute pain in the butt for everybody, would you? I still can't believe you've got 3 lanes in the tunnel these days. Just suddenly appeared that 3rd lane. If you'd like to ring Nick Maruchak, you can. 133 882. We'd love to hear from you. Anything you like. We saw a significant court outcome just a couple of days ago. Nick, record damages for an abuse survivor. This was the 9th of September, so a few days ago.
Yep. So Mr. Barber was basically abused while in state care in the 1980s and 90s, and he basically won $2.85 million, which appears to be a record from historical child abuse cases. Basically, the law changed not too long ago to allow to remove the limitation period, so there's no deadline to commence these claims if you were abused as a child. The state basically sent him back to his abusive father when they knew he was experiencing that negative treatment. So the interesting thing is just a quick chat about how that $2.85 million was calculated, right? Because I just find that interesting, and maybe some of the listeners would, because so the court has to basically, what they do is they try and put you in the same position you would have been had you not been abused. And that seems like a challenging task to do, right? So money can only do so much. So he got $400,000 for basically something called as general damages, right? This is the money that's compensated to him for pain and suffering because he's been diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder. He got some psychiatrists to give evidence. He ended up, using substance abuse disorders and stuff like that. So that's the money. That $400,000 was to compensate him for his damage to his health. Then he got another almost $600,000 for, or $900,000 for loss of past earnings. What they did here is they go, because he was abused, he had a very limited employment. He had sporadic workforce, so he didn't earn as much as he could have. So they went back over the last couple of decades and worked out how much he would have earned and how much he did earn, and that difference was about $900,000. They just compared his earnings to an average male employee in Western Australia, and they just calculated the difference. Then they gave him a bit of money for lost earnings in the future. So that's almost $600,000 of, until he retires, the difference between what he would earn and what he, the difference between what he's likely to earn and what he would earn. So he's got that. Sometimes they also discount this stuff. When they give you money for future loss earnings, they usually discount it. They'll give you a 15 or 20% discount to accommodate for unexpected events in life, such as a job loss or anything like that. But they didn't do that in this case. And then they also said this was a rare situation where they also gave him extra $150,000 as something called exemplary damages, which is basically a punishment designed to deter people from engaging in such conduct because what the state did was just very vile and appalling to send it back to his abuser.
Yep.
So that's roughly, and there's a few more things like that, but that's roughly interesting. He also got interest on it, so $600,000 worth of interest on that money as well.
Okay.
So anyway, I don't know if I just found that that's how
it's calculated. Yeah. No, thank you. That's Dion Barber, $2.85 million abuser while award of the state in the 80s and 90s. Gee, you like to think that doesn't happen these days, but that's a landmark case, no doubt. Pat's phoned in. Hi, Pat.
Oh, hi there. Look, I received an email from a very large insurance company, which I can tell you who they were eventually, a few weeks ago, saying that my details had been updated. Well, I've never dealt with the insurance company at all, other than to maybe get a quote. So I rang them to ask them where they got the details from and what details they had, and they asked me actually to identify all my confidential details before they spoke to me, which I did because they wouldn't speak to me otherwise. So then they said, yes, we've got all those details. And I said, but I've never had a policy with you ever. And they said, but, you must have rung up for a quote at some stage. And I said, well, I don't want my details to be held by you because it's an invasion of my privacy for a start. And they said, no, we will take them off. I rang about a week later and asked them, and they had all my details still. I've got this on emails. Then one of the complaints people sent me the Commonwealth Privacy Act of 1988 and also the Commonwealth Corporations Act of 2001, which says that they are legally required to retain financial records and associated documents for 7 years, including records arising from quotes, inquiries and other interactions. I can't believe that after all that we have dealt with Optus, HBF, Qantas, etc., that this is a request that they just refuse to take my details off.
Who's the insurer, Pat?
NRMA.
Wow. Okay, so big one.
Yeah.
Big organisation.
Yeah, so there's a few things. One is this is all governed under the Privacy Act, and we are getting better and better privacy protection coming through. There's new laws that are recently passed where it'll give a consumer, anyone, a right to directly sue if there's been a privacy breach. So the laws are being strengthened. But under the Privacy Act, there's a few things. One is you can make a request to access all your personal information that any organisation has on you that's covered by the Privacy Act. So if anyone earning more than $3 million, they're covered. So you can make that request. You have to provide some ID and it has to be free, and they usually have to give you information within 30 days. So, Pat, you can make that request and actually see all the personal information they have on you. Personal information means any information that can identify you. So you can make that request if you haven't already made it, but it sounds like you may have. Then the second thing is requesting a deletion. So an organisation must destroy or de-identify your personal information when they no longer need it for any purpose, or if they're not legally required to retain it. So under the tax laws or corporate laws or health record keeping obligations. So it's true that an organisation has to keep records, financial record type records for 7 years, because that's an obligation under the Corporations Act. So they need some of those records in order to account for financial type matters. So anything that falls under that they're allowed to retain, but anything that's not covered by that, they actually have to delete under the Privacy Act. So you make this request to them for your personal information, see what records they have, then you need to make a decision whether they actually need to retain that for financial type information under the Corporations Act. Then if you're still unhappy about it, you can go to the Australian Privacy Commission, the Office of Australian Privacy Commissioner. You can lodge a complaint there. They'll do an investigation to see if there's been compliance or not. And going to the Privacy Commission is a free process, but it does take time. Sometimes you lodge a complaint and you won't hear anything for 6 months.
Does that help, Pat?
Very helpful. Yeah, that is. I mean, it's gobbledygook, all the acts and principles that they sent me. I didn't quite understand it. So that is actually helpful. I'll be able to do it. I just think it's an invasion on my privacy.
Yeah, and thank you, Pat. And there's recently been some changes to RAC insurance in particular, how that is managed nationally. So the NRMA and the RAC are linked in that ownership of that particular arm of their business. Thanks, Pat. G'day, Dave.
Simon, Nick, good morning. How are you going?
G'day, mate. Good, thanks.
This revolves my beautiful 17-year-old daughter. She works for a reasonably large department area in Fremantle. There was an incident in October last year where someone got behind the counter and held her in a bear hug, and someone else came in and threatened with a knife, and she was the in-between person.
Was this at work? At work, Dave?
This is at work. Yep, this is at work. So she's a 17-year-old, still at school, and the male was arrested. The guy with the knife was arrested, and I believe he's in jail. The woman that was involved that held my daughter, apparently she is in jail also while she was on something or other. Since then, so my daughter's now 18. Since then, she has had a couple of psych appointments. Has psych appointments every week. She has flashbacks, and that's all this kind of stuff. She's on a bit of antidepressant kind of gear, keeping in mind that she's 18 years old. So she's on workers' comp to some extent, so they're helping out pay for the psych and the medication, etc., etc. But now they're saying we're going to stop your workers' comp. And my darling daughter, her life has been a mess for the last 9-10 months because of this incident, and I'm just after the direction on which way to kind of turn.
Okay, so there's a few. That's great that you made the workers' comp application. Have you engaged a lawyer to help you with that? And the reason I say that is because our system in workers' comp is quite good. Lawyers usually in this industry work on a no-win, no-fee basis, and they get paid by the insurance company. So there is a huge incentive just to get a lawyer to assist you. Have you got one at this stage?
No, we haven't. As I said, they're just on the back end now of saying we're going to cut you off. And she's only doing, working 6 or 7 hours a week there. And they're working it from the back of the store, getting it back into the main part of the store, if you know what I mean. She's actually changed locations for where she works, but for the same place. So they're doing good in that part, but in the remediation part of her health, her mental health, they kind of seem to have dropped the ball a bit.
Okay. Yeah, because, look, they can kind of stop the payments in certain cases if you're fit enough to return to work. There's also statutory limits, right, on how much they can pay. They're quite generous, but if you've reached those limits, then they can't pay you anymore. But let's assume that your daughter is probably not going to be reaching those limits because this only happened last year. So there are some cases when they can stop it. So that's why seeing a lawyer will help you make a decision on whether these payments are lawfully stopped or not. Then another part is something called a lump sum settlement, right? So once the injury has stabilized, and it sounds like it hasn't, so what stabilized means is that you kind of go, okay, we know really clearly how much further medical treatment is needed. We know the extent of the injury. So then we can offer you a lump sum payment to compensate you for the damage to your health and also payment for future medical expenses. So that's the key stage in settling a claim. So they might kind of stop payments for like loss of income, right, in some circumstances. But that doesn't mean they won't give you a lump sum settlement. And lump sum settlement is basically the money that your daughter will get to compensate damage to her health and also future medical expenses. So that's why I really recommend you just go to a workers' compensation lawyer. They specialise in this, and they'll be able to make a decision going, well, if they disagree with what the workers' comp insurer done, they can take it to arbitration, right? They can lodge a claim in the tribunal, and then they'll try and get you more money and all that kind of stuff. What they do is they need the medical evidence. What they'll do is, because this all comes down to the evidence of the doctors. That's the most important part here. And the insurer will have their doctor that they will make your daughter go in and see, but it's also good for your lawyer to maybe engage their own doctor to get a second opinion to see whether, it's true or not. So I'll try some places like Peninsula Legal. They're one organisation. Shine is another organisation, and Stephen Brown is another organisation. And these are places we often refer people to, and I'd recommend you talk to them before you make any key decisions, because there's a chance you might just get less than you're entitled to. I hope that helps.
It does a lot. I just needed some direction, so I do appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Much. Good luck with it, mate. Good luck with her, hey?
All right. Thank you.
Cheers, mate. Thanks, Dave. Andrew, stay there, mate. We'll get to you in just a moment. Coming up in the news at 11 o'clock with our gun newsreader, Philip Amar, the Transport Minister, announces the rollout of contactless payment technology on Perth's public transport network. Hooray! You can use tap and go on the trains, buses and ferries. Wowee. WA Cricket officially launches its season. We'll have Adam Voges on the phone after 11 as well. Have a bit of a chat about that. And Philip will have all the finance and the weather and all the sport at 11 o'clock. Thank you for listening. 13 and a half to 11. Andrew's phoned in. Hi, Andrew.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Mate.
Nick, I got picked up for speeding. I was towing a trailer, so the maximum speed I can do is 100 kilometres. The speedo on my car says I was doing 100 kilometres. I have an independent GPS in the car, and that was at 98. I had the cruise control set at 100 from the car. The copper reckons I was doing 106. The fine is negligible. His attitude was, pay the fine or I'll see you in court. Is there any point in arguing with this?
Yeah, it's a high risk, right? Because you're going to basically, I mean, when I say high risk, if you can elect to take it to court, then you have to dedicate all the time to attending the court hearings and having a trial. And if you lose the trial, that they will obviously you'll get a higher fine, and you have to pay some of the court costs, right? So there might be a couple of $100 extra in court costs, and there might also be a contribution to the prosecution costs. Now, these type of matters are run by the WA Police. So if you lose, you're not going to pay a huge amount of legal fees, but there will be some contribution. So a $100 fine could turn into $500 or $600 and spend a whole bunch of time. The police will call in their expert, and they'll say the machine was properly calibrated, and then you've got your evidence. And the judge has to make a decision on, is your evidence enough to cast reasonable doubt on the machines? And I'm not an expert in this area, but if I was you, I'd say there's a good chance that they might be able to convince a judge, because I think that chances are probably have the ducks in a row. While your evidence is good, is it enough to create a reasonable amount of doubt by the judge to actually discount all of the technical details on the police machine?
Jeez, that's frustrating, Andrew, isn't it? That's annoying.
Tell me about it.
Oh, mate.
I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I can only go on what the vehicle's telling me. Or
Yeah,
the GPS.
absolutely. Has it happened before, mate? You've been pinged before for...
No.
Yeah.
No, this is the first time. And it was out near Yale Goose. I was a country copper, but his attitude was, pay the fine or I'll see you in the court.
Yeah, right. Well, that's not cool either. Andrew, and to our listeners, is there anywhere we can go and have the speed, your speed in your car checked? I don't know where. I know where you can get your odometer checked, and I think there's a 1 kilometre on Labashire Road or Mill Point Road or one of those, but I don't know where you can go to get your speed checked to see if your speedo's right. Maybe.
All I can suggest as well, just because you can write to them and request a review. So write to them, put all your information in, and see if they would just exercise their discretion to remove the fine. So that I would do that, and then if they say no, then potentially just cop the fine, because you got the GPS, but the GPS is still going to be less reliable and less accurate than a laser that the police hold. So.
Mate, I don't know if we've helped you very much there, but there is a process if you want to write and request a review, hey?
It's on
cheers, I might try that.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Cheers.
Good
Thank
luck.
you. That's frustrating.
It is.
A question from one of our listeners, Brendan. There's been 2 recent court appearances involving fatalities. So one of them was the fellow who was killed in the CBD outside the Belgian Beer Hotel by Alicia Kemp, who was the English backpacker. So she allegedly blew in excess of 0.08, operating a scooter on the footpath, has struck this fella, Mr. Fan. He has died, hit his head on the pavement and dies. She's an English backpacker. She doesn't get bail.
Yep.
Brendan's asking the question. There's a fella yesterday in court. He pleaded guilty to driving at 100 k's an hour on Kings Park Road and killing Brenda Walker, who, by the way, is Don Walker's sister. Don Walker, the keyboardist and songwriter from Cold Chisel. So that's, we take an interest in that because of her high profile. He gets bail, and he's Brazilian. What are the rules around bail and whether one is determined to be a flight risk and one isn't? Because they are not dissimilar, albeit one involved the scooter, but we've seen a fatality. She doesn't get bail, he does.
So one of the key differences, I don't know those cases kind of intimately, but one of the key differences is one of them was under the influence of alcohol,
yes.
The other wasn't, right?
Yeah, okay.
So when it comes to bail, there is a presumption in favour of granting bail, right, unless you fall into more serious categories. And then what the court has to consider is a bunch of factors such as flight risk of reoffending, how strong the case is, the personal circumstances, also the criminal record of the individual. So that's why individual outcomes can differ as well. So if someone has a criminal record and has been in the system before, they have less chance of getting bail. So, and when it comes to kind of flight risks, they will look at how much ties you have to the community, right? So if you've been here for a lot longer, you've got a house here, you're married, you're less of a flight risk than if you've got nothing here, right? And all your family's overseas. So some of those, the connection to Western Australia and how often you travel and your mobility are all stuff that's taken into account to determine that flight risk issue. So there's some things.
Is alcohol consumption mentioned in those criteria there, Nick, that you have in front of you?
Well, the criteria would be the seriousness of the offence, right?
Okay.
So,
Okay, gotcha.
So and the strength of the case. So my kind of view would be that the driving under the influence of alcohol is a different category to just being careless and driving carelessly, and you know, it's a tragic outcome, but you know, it's the fine or the punishment was going to be lower for carelessness as opposed to deliberate reckless drunkenness.
Yeah, all right.
So,
An effective way. So, yeah, okay.
So,
yeah, all right. Thank you, Brandon. Thanks for your query. Nick, thank you for today. Well done, mate.
thank you, Bowie.
Look forward to seeing you next week. All the best.
All right.
Nick Maruchak from MKI Legal with his thoughts, expertise and care there. 3.5 minutes to 11.